Welcome back. You made it. You're here, and I'm really glad you are because I have a really special guest for you. It took some pulling with this PR team. I had to pull a lot of strings, guys. But no, I'm just playing. I had to send him a text, and he was here. No, I'm sitting with Brandon freaking West, bro. How are you? How you doing?
So good, man. So good to be with you.
I call him Sensei Brandon, and there's a couple of reasons why.
I didn't agree to this.
No, he did not. No, this is definitely my doing. But I call him this because one, I look up to the guy. Every time that we speak and that we talk, I always walk away with something to apply in my own life, in my business, and honestly my marriage, which we could go on and on about that. But I'm really happy that you're sitting here, genuinely joyful that you're sitting here because you've brought me a lot of value in my life, and I'm really banking on that people that are going to watch you speak today, they're going to do the same. So no pressure at all. No pressure.
It's overly generous, man. Overly generous.
Hey, bro, I'm just being honest. But so Brandon, just give us some background, man. Like, where are you from? All that stuff.
Yeah. Brandon West. I call myself the Chief Purpose Officer of Fos Creative. So I'm the founder and the Chief Purpose Officer, which means it is my job to guard our mission as a company. I own a business here in Gainesville called Fos Creative, and Fos has about 25 people who work for it. Most of them are here in the city. I've got a family. My wife and I have been married for 17 years. My two children. I have a 15-year-old son, a 12-year-old son. As I know, dude, that is...
He's 15 now?
He's 15 years old, man. I have a 15-year-old son.
He's driving, isn't he?
He's driving.
Oh!
He's driving. Just got into his first little fender bender the other day.
Are you serious?
Took his foot off of the gas and tapped the person in front of him. It was completely fine. The person was like, that's no big deal. We're good. Yeah. All of that, man. That's new parenting.
Yeah.
That is new parenting.
Yeah. That's awesome, bro. That's awesome. I'm just gonna come off hot, man. Like, what's it like being a man of God with a family in a successful business? Like, what's that life like for you?
Yeah, I think all of us have a plurality of things on our plate. Your dad and I, Craig Wilburn, have been friends for many, many years. And as a Keller Williams guy, he loves to point me to Gary's book called The One Thing. And I find it exceedingly frustrating to read that book. You got to have one thing. I'm like, ain't nobody got one thing. Yeah. Ain't nobody got one thing. Everybody got plates, and we're all spinning the plates. Yeah. But sometimes we have to choose which plates we're either going to let fall or we're going to place them down ourselves. And when you've got a business, when you've got a job, a career that you're pursuing, a family that you're trying to build, a ministry that you're trying to be a part of, a purpose that you're trying to see lived out in your life, all of the different things, you have to make these strategic choices. So for me, what is it like to manage all of those things? I'm just trying to be faithful. I'm trying to keep the right plates spinning, but I'm also trying to be courageous enough to say this plate over here must come crashing down, or this plate over here I'm willing to come and place down. I was talking with a friend the other day, and she was so bummed because she had said yes to this internship and then had to back out of it a couple of weeks later. And she's like, I'm such a failure. I'm such a failure because I said yes to this and now I'm having to back out. I feel like such a failure. And I said, actually, a failure would have been you saying yes, being in it for a few weeks like you were supposed to be, failing to do any of the things you promised you would do in that internship, and then saying at the end, well, my internship's done now. I said, the failure was not you saying no to it after you had said yes. Maybe the failure was saying yes in the first place, but actually it was leadership for you to say, I can't do this. I overcommitted. I must lay it down.
Francis Zipeto, business maps coach extraordinaire. He's got knowledge on how to level you up for days. Francis, thank you for supporting our platform.
I think each of us are challenged to do the same thing with the plurality of things in front of us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when you say plurality of things, that means just like the multiple plates that you were talking about, right? Does that mean?
I think we say a lot at Fos, at my company, like you're called to be a leader worth following in every domain of your life and leadership. So I think in everything that we walk into, whether it's our home for our family, our church for our spiritual community, our friendships, our job, our business, the organizations that we choose to be a part of, we're called to be a leader worth following. So I think in each of those instances, I'm trying to ask myself, what is required of me here? What does faithfulness look like for me in that domain of my life and leadership? Those are the plates. Those domains are the plates, and I have to choose to let some come to an end. Tonight is my last night leading as the chairman of the board of directors for Created Gainesville, a nonprofit that I've been a part of for many, many, many years now, and served as the president of the board of directors.
Wow.
And in the past year, as I've tried to say, like, God, what are you calling me to? How does my unique purpose in life line up with the things I'm a part of? Sometimes you have to say no to very good things. And this is exceedingly difficult.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I had to stop leading worship at a church that you and I were equally a part of. That's a fruitful ministry. That's a good thing. People's lives are being impacted by what you do. And you're going to be like, yeah, not anymore. And on one hand, you could be like, are you nuts? You want to use your gifts. You want to use your influence. You want to do this. Why would you say no to this when it's producing the results that you want? And these are the hard moments where we have to say, maybe I'll say no to something good in pursuit of something great. It's a hard choice.
There's just something about letting go, bro. There's just something about letting go.
And it's hard.
It is extremely.
Why do you think letting go is challenging?
Because we get comfortable with what we're holding on to, and being comfortable, sometimes it's that emotion that's tied to the thing that you've been holding on to for so long. Like for instance, we're in the shift in my business right now where I thought that by doing one thing in this system and I hold on to it and I'm just like, man, this is what separates me from this is what separates us and makes us so unique. And then I realized after just multiple conversations and talking with the team and seeing what people really want to do and what they don't want to do, and you just learn more about yourself, you realize it's like, oh, it's time to let go.
You and I were talking about LinkedIn recently.
Yeah.
I posted a story recently that has been so instrumental to me as I think through some of the questions you're asking right now. It's a story of a rabbi, a humorous guy who was caught up in the scriptures at one point as he was reading, and he missed his turn off to go back to his temple that he was a part of. And instead he wound up in front of a Roman fortress, and one of the Roman guards was out front, and when he saw the man, he startled the rabbi when he shouted at him, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" And the rabbi was shook. And he was like, what did you just say? He said, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" And he said, "How much do you get paid to stand here to ask those questions?" And he said, 2 shekels per day. He said, "I'll pay you twice that to stand outside of my house and every morning ask me those 2 questions when I walk out the door. Who are you, and what are you doing here?" This really gets at purpose. I think the problem, the difficulty in saying no to something and giving up something comes from this identity problem regarding purpose. Who am I, and what am I doing here? It is exceedingly challenging for me not to tie my identity to the things that I do.
Yeah, bro.
I was sitting in a group full of businessmen recently, and one is considering a big change in their career, in their life, in this business that they run. And he's having to ask this question like, who am I on the other side of my business? And the whole room, like when it became clear that like that was the problem, it was this identity problem. The whole room was like, there it is. And I just shut down the room for him. I was like, guys, stop. And I just looked at this person and I said, the whole room right here would like to rejoice that they just became super clear what this challenge is. I just said, dude, I just want to resonate with you, and say that every single person in this room would struggle with that issue.
Thank you to our sponsor, Elite Realty. Elite Realty is completely unmatched against the competition when it comes to their customer relations. Thank you, Elite Realty, for supporting our platform that's creating transparency around failure and helping people win all over the world. Thank you so much.
And it's not to give permission to our identity being tied to a thing or to a business or to a pursuit, but it's to say like, this is at the heart of the issue. I heard somebody say recently, you know, is identity, they were asking like this famous person, is identity like an American problem? And he said, identity is the American problem. We all struggle with this. I heard a story this morning on the way over driving here. Somebody was speaking on stage and he was sharing about his LifeLock experience, a business that protects your identity from getting stolen. LifeLock.
Yeah.
And he was like, this isn't a commercial for LifeLock, because honestly, as soon as you sign up for this, you're going to start getting tons of emails from them. Every single time something they think, that somebody may have done something against your identity, you'll get an email and it'll say every time, was this you? Was this you?
Mm-hmm.
And you get these regular emails on a daily basis just saying, was this you? And I just thought, man, how many times do I walk into a room and I show up and my behavior, the way I conduct myself, I would just ask myself afterwards, like, was this you?
Mm-hmm.
Tonight with your family, the way that you serve, the way that you walk in the door, your posture. If I watched a video of that from your Nest video cameras all around the house, and I played it back and I just would ask, was this you? I think sometimes it's even hard to know who we are, and it gets even more complicated when we tie it to something that we're unwilling to give up because now our identity is connected to it.
What are the things when it comes to your, because what we're talking about is a lot of personal development, personal growth, and honest and beliefs. What are the things that you refuse to compromise on when it comes to your growth and your development?
Yeah, that's so good. My walk with Jesus, my relationship with my wife, and my leadership with my children.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Those three things are the non-negotiables. Those are the plates that always have to be spinning.
Yeah.
They always have to be spinning. And those are the ones for which you will let another plate fall or you will put another plate down in order to protect those things. And so it is with business as well, where I've said, I would shut down my business. I would shut that down before I'd ever let it destroy my family.
How did you get here, man? Like, how did you get to that conclusion? Like, who was the Brandon before all of this?
How many big, tall towers do you have to see come crumbling down before you refuse to let yourself become one of them? You know, I think about some of the men that I've seen in my life that I respected. So I remember the first time where a man that I highly respected had taught me so much about marriage and leadership. And I was told, yeah, that man just divorced his wife and has given up on their relationship.
How old were you when this happened?
That was probably early 20s or so.
Okay.
And
like my age?
Yeah. And I heard that and I just thought, what am I supposed to do with everything I just got from this man for the last decade of my life?
Right.
Am I supposed to just reject it? Am I supposed to just let that go? And that turmoil that happens internally inside of us when somebody is unfaithful to the person that they've committed themselves to be is some of the horror that I want to avoid in my life and in my leadership. Mm-hmm. You know, you think about even the lessons that you learn growing up. I remember the first time that my mom ever identified that I was looking at pornography, an addiction in my teens. The shame that comes with that and the guilt that comes with that. I don't want my life to be about avoiding shame and guilt. But man, sometimes those are pretty powerful emotions that make you say, I never want to do, be, or become the person that I just interacted with or saw myself being. I got pinged by LifeLock and said, was this you? Mm-hmm. or maybe we would even ask in present tense, is this you? To look around our lives, to what we're doing, the time that we're spending on things and just saying, is this who I am? Because that's such a more intentional question than we ask on a daily basis versus what's my big three for today? What are my big three to do?
What's my checklist?
What's my check? Yeah. Get the checklist in place, and then the successful day just becomes how many things can you check off? Is this you? A much more difficult question.
We got a lot of early 20s. You know, people that are in their early 20s. You know, male, female, whatever. They all watch this, and is this you? Is such a profound and convicting question, because it is so easy for people that are in this early 20s stage, whether they're starting a business, whether they're just getting married, whether they're in school, like no matter what it is that they're doing, or they're just trying to figure out who they are. Like that's such a convicting question, because a lot of our, at least from what I see, is a lot of what's pushed to us online, or a lot of what's said to us through motivational speakers and things like that. It's all about, how much can you accomplish? How much can you do? It's like, you need to ask yourself, do you really want this? It's like, nah, bro, you need to figure out, is this you? You need to ask that question. When you were in your early 20s, what kind of questions were you asking yourself?
It's we ask ourselves, young and old, some of the exact same questions. Oftentimes, some of those deep questions don't change over time. I'm writing a book right now. It's hopeful release date is in January of 2024, so a few months from now.
Some of the link.
The book is entitled, working title, "It Is Not Your Business to Succeed." And it's contrasting two different mindsets. And the one mindset that I'm contrasting against, I feel, is far too easy for any one of us to succumb to. It contrasts the mindset of what I'm calling the outcome-based mindset and the faithfulness mindset. The outcome-based mindset says, I am what I produce. I am my accomplishments. When my accomplishments go well, I am great. I am happy. I am fulfilled. I'm leading out my purpose. And when they're not, I'm a failure. When my wife read through the book, she was the second person to finish reading it other than myself. And she commented on one particular section in the Google Doc as she was editing it. And she said, "Babe, mic drop. Can I remind you of this later?"
Do you give me permission?
When I had to write the introduction to the book, my editor asked, I was like, I hate introductions to books. What do I need to write? And he said, "Write why you wrote this book." And I quoted Shelley, and I said, "I wrote this book because I need it." When I was young, it's all your goals are me goals. You fill out your dream book, and it's like, God, what do I want to own? How much money do I want to make? What's retirement look like? What do I want to have? What do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? The questions, if there's a different one that I'm asking myself now, it's how are my goals supposed to be focused on other people? That my goals in life shouldn't just be what I want to accomplish for myself and do for myself, but what do I want to do and accomplish for other people? But to avoid the outcome-based mindset, we pursue God, and then we leave all of the results in his hands. That's the faithfulness mindset that says, I will go and do the hard daily work, and I will entrust all the results to God. Somebody challenged me recently, "Brandon, you got this really cool mission in the company. You're trying to start all these care centers for women and children who are being sex trafficked and extreme poverty. What happens if you can't fulfill that vision? What happens if you don't have enough money in your business to go and fund that?" And I was like, well, I'd feel like I was a failure. This is the mindset that if I set this target on something and I can't accomplish it, then I am a failure. The faithfulness mindset says instead, no, I'm going to set my target on this. I want to set a vision for my company. I want to set a purpose for my company. I want to set a target that we're shooting for. And then I'm just going to have to open my hands and say, God, like, if you don't want that to happen, that's okay. And this is where we can, for young people, where you can just say, I'm going to chase this. And as soon as God says, nope, not that, this, I'll go, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Versus, but what on my life? Who am I? No. Who are you is not the same question as what do you do?
Exactly.
Or what the context.
And that's what this conversation seems to be coming back to. It's like this identity transformation, into from what you do into just, is this you? Is this you?
The direction that you're headed versus the outcome that you're aiming for. Henry David Thoreau said, it is not as important what you accomplish, but who you become in pursuit of what you want.
Can you say that again? It's the direction that you're headed, not the outcome that.
Yeah, I think for me, what I'm realizing is that faithfulness in my life is not, I accomplished everything I set out to do. But faithfulness for me answers the question, was I the person that I was supposed to be as I sought the things I felt called to?
What are some past situations in your life where there was a moment where you were outcome driven. Something happened, transformation happened, and then you were faith driven, and you were like, what was that? What was that shift?
I'll give you a super recent one.
Okay.
2 months ago, almost to the day, I woke up at 7 a.m. to a knock on my front door while Shelly and I were getting ready in our room. A knock on our front door at 7 a.m. This doesn't happen. And it was the Gainesville Police Department standing outside of my front door. And they said, Mr. West, I'd like to know that your business Post Creative was broken into last night. And I was like, bro, we have some people who like use our space. Like they accidentally set off the alarm all the time. Trust me, this didn't happen. Can I grab my phone real quick? Yes, sir. Yeah, actually. So I go inside, grab my phone, pull it up. No notifications from my alarm system. I was like, yeah, I think you're wrong about this. And I pull up the video camera and I start scrubbing through some videos. And all of a sudden, right there on my camera is a man last night, the night prior at 10:16 p.m. who entered our studio masked and with gloves on, and for 16 minutes walked out with handfuls and handfuls of our gear in our studio, $30,000 worth of stuff. I dropped everything, headed over to the studio with the police department, and spent the next hour walking through the studio, glass everywhere, and trying to figure out what had been taken. I'm thinking, what a waste. I'm going to have to spend $30,000 to go replace all this stuff. God, you know we have this vision to go and build all these care centers. Like, that's taking away from this. Like, what a waste. Why would you do this? My pastor heard about what was going on and just texted me and said, I'm on my way immediately. Dropped everything that he was doing, walked over, spent hours helping us clean up glass. But when he got there, he just put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Brandon, God's going to use this. I was like,
did you believe him in that moment?
No. I was like, Kay, whatever you say, man. Whatever.
Yes, Pastor.
Whatever you say. I was
Yes,
just like, all right.
yes.
But I had hope. I had faith that maybe if he was right, like maybe I would see it. And so I just I created this journal in my phone called God Stories. And over the next few weeks, I just started writing down every single time that I saw God do something in the middle of this. And I began to share publicly like what was going on and how God was leading me and the lessons that he was teaching me. When I went to the state attorney's office and I had to give my witness testimony, I'm sitting there and she tells me that I can write a victim letter to Lionel, the man who stole from Fos. And so I took a couple hours one night a few weeks ago and I wrote this 2-page letter that just shared my story, shared my experience, shared the gospel with him, and just said, hey man, I forgive you and I'm understanding about what you did. I used to be a thief. I would steal from my family and from my friends and from people I didn't know. And I didn't care. And here's what happened when God showed up in my life. And I got to give that letter back to the state attorney. It'll be read at his sentencing when he's sentenced for his crimes in front of the whole courtroom. It'll be read. And this is a moment where on an outcome-based thinking, you're thinking like, this is such a waste of my time. This is such a waste of our resources.
What a deterrent to, what a roadblock. You know?
This is what a failure in our mission and in our progress and in our growth and in our continuity. Wednesday was the first day back in the office after that, where the whole team gathered in a space that had been violated 24 hours prior. By the end of the day, I'm checking in with my team going, how do you think today went? And somebody came up to me and they said, I don't think our mission skipped a beat today. And this is that difference between the outcome-based mindset that says everything is a waste that isn't for growth and something new and innovation, and the faithfulness mindset says everything is in God's hands. Everything is meant for his glory and my good, and I just need to figure out what it looks like for me to walk into that situation and be faithful.
Yeah. What did what was your thoughts on the way there? Like, you find out that you were wrong. Okay, somebody actually broke into your stuff, and you're driving. What did that drive look like for you?
Anxious. A lot of.
Are you kidding me?
The questions of how much is going to be missing? How much could somebody really take in 16 minutes? Like, what's the space going to look like? Is it going to be desks flipped over and tape, papers everywhere? I couldn't get there fast enough. I'm like looking at the ETA on my like driving, like, okay, 8 minutes left, 7 minutes left, 6 minutes. I'm almost there. And just so anxious to get in there and see what was going on. My head space at that moment was not the faithfulness mindset. And so often, like, that's what the vast majority of our life looks like. We have to have a correction. We have to have a redefinition. We have to have a light bulb go off yet again in our hearts and in our minds to say, you got to think different about this moment. You have to reassess this season.
Yeah.
You have to see that all the darkness that seems to be flooding in right now is not the full picture. There's another chapter after this one that you don't have access to yet, where God's writing the grander narrative in this season, and you have to just trust, like, God will do something good. Now, I think I'm reading through Screw Tape Letters right now. C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters. First time ever.
Yeah.
I'm so sad I didn't read this prior.
Yeah.
This will be top 10, maybe top 5 books I've ever read.
And can you give, just because I'm sure people want to know, what is a Screw Tape?
C.S. Lewis, one of the top Christian thinkers from the past century. And in this book, it's a very poetic look at Screw Tape, a mentor for, as he calls, the father below, and one of his mentees, Wormwood. And in 31 letters, C.S. Lewis is writing these letters, Screw Tape to Wormwood, teaching him how to care for his patient and how he can turn his patient to the father below and against the enemy above,
Right.
God. And in this book, I've been so reminded that the enemy would love to throw off our game every time and say, this trough that you're in, like, it's not for your good. It's going to destroy you. In one of the letters, Wormwood is Screw Tape's writing to Wormwood and saying, you think that this trough that he's in right now is going to be for our good and for the enemy, for the father below? You don't understand. The enemy above uses some of these troughs for his good as well. And in the end of the letter, he says, never is our work as demons, as like these evil creatures, never is our work more threatened than one of these patients who, in a season where they don't feel the hand of God upon them, still chooses to obey.
Oh, bro, but this is God's providence, right? I was reading in the Word this morning, and it was talking about how, when like you look at Joseph, the story of Joseph, right? And that moment when his brothers came to him, they were like, aren't you gonna like mess us up because we messed with you, And he was like, no, you don't get it. Even through the evil that you intended for me, God was able to use that for good. And now I'm second in command for Egypt, and I'm saving Israel, and it's just like, and that's just God's providence throughout all the billions of stories and situations that are similar to yours, And here's a question for you. So it was in in this situation specifically, you saw God's providence, right? You saw the terrible stuff and the anxiety and things that hit you, and then you were able to, really, God's hand was on you, and you were able to move out of that and then write this letter to this guy, and now it's going to be read in front of the courtroom and read in front of him, and he's going to be able to receive what I would assume is a taste of the gospel. In what areas of your life have you seen God's providence for you? And were you able? Was the same ending to this story? Did that happen in those areas as well?
When you and I were a part of the church that we used to be a part of together.
Yeah.
We did this really cool creative thing on a Good Friday service. So this is the Friday leading up to Easter, in which we remember Jesus' death on the cross, where Easter celebrates his resurrection. These are typically darker services. We're looking at the cross, the crucifixion, Jesus' suffering. My wife and I spent months building this really creative piece for the church where we took 900 yards of this thick red rope, and we braided 3 cords together so that we had, 250 feet of this braided cord. We took this beautiful wooden cross, we set it up on the stage, we wrapped the red cord on the cross down the stairs, through the middle of the lobby, straight out the front door, and it was connected to the front door. It was meant to symbolize God's faithfulness on the cross, going with us out the door in this triune braided cord together on the cross and out the door into the rest of our lives. And we had these little cards created that people were going to fill out, and they were going to, you remember this?
I remember this.
They were going to have these, and then they were going to write some answers on these cards, and they were going to tie them then to this thread in the middle. On one side of the card, it asked the question, where have I seen God be faithful in the past? Mm-hmm. And so you just start writing down, my family, my business, and my career, and my community, and this. But there was a big problem with these cards that I should have seen way further off in this creative brainstorming process. On the other side of the card, it asked a similar question. Where do you need God to be faithful in the future? And all of a sudden I'm writing down my family, my business, my career, my community. I was like, both sides of the same thing.
Exactly.
Both sides of this. And I was like, oh shoot, this was not a good activity until I realized this is precisely what this activity was meant to prove. Every place where you need God to show up to be faithful in the future is all the same exact places that he's been faithful in the past.
Exactly.
The Psalms say that the faithfulness of God is a shield for us. It's this giant, impenetrable, invisible fortress surrounding us. That's God's faithfulness. We walk into every season with this shield surrounding us, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
And understanding this, because I'll say it's a journey, man. It's a journey getting to, this place where you're living your life, and, you get into situations and you might not even recognize it. Even when you get out, you're just like, oh, thank God I got out of that. All right, let's keep going. You don't even like realize what God did. But what does that do for you now as Brandon West? What does, now that you understand, even looking back, it's like, wow, God was so faithful. His providence has been so great. What does that do? What kind of life do you live now? Understanding and holding on to this belief of who God is and what he's done for you.
Yeah. When I'm holding on to it,
yeah,
I sense more freedom. I have more freedom. I have more peace. I have more joy. I have more hope for the future, because I know that the future isn't just bright, but it's also not just dark. Mm-hmm. The future will be the thing I've seen in the past as well. Valleys and hills that we walk through until one day we ascend the hill of the Lord, and there's nothing but him forever.
Amen.
So for me, when I'm doing it well, I sense peace and freedom. And when I'm not doing it well, I've got anxiety. I've got loneliness. I can struggle with depression. Mm-hmm. When the darkness seems to hide his face, like this is when Christ is meant to be our anchor.
When you're in those lower points, what are the incremental change? What are the things that change for you even in the midst of those low points? Meaning, like, what are you more cognizant of when you are in that moment?
Yeah, my failures, imposter syndrome. I'm not as able to cope. My coping mechanisms are lower. What usually is like a bathtub full of things that I can take care of, or a swimming pool full of things I can take care of, becomes this smaller cup. Last year was definitively, thus far in my life, the worst year of my life. I lost my mother to Parkinson's disease. She passed away early in the year. Mid-year, I attempted one of the largest business endeavors that we've ever taken on, and 10 days into it, it began to erode. We lost team members and clients. It was such a challenging year. And my wife, in the middle of this, we had scheduled for the past 3 years, she's been planning out this amazing vacation to go to California. And for her, it's the picturesque, perfect vacation ever. Mountains and beach in the same miles. Yeah. She's like, this is And I'm going through the season, and she's having the time of her life. I'm waking up at 3 a.m. and laying in bed with my heart racing at 3 a.m., struggling to breathe. And I'm just laying in bed, and I'm having to say to myself what I know is true that I don't feel in that moment. And I would just say over and over to myself, infinitely wise, constantly good, endlessly loving. Infinitely wise, constantly good, endlessly loving. And I would just say that over and over to myself.
Say it one more time.
Infinitely wise, constantly good, endlessly loving.
That's who he is.
And you, I don't see it right now. I don't feel it right now. But I know it's true. And I use that in the dark season to just point myself back to truth over and over again.
Amen, bro. Amen to that. Amen, bro. And I think that's the perfect place to, man, I want to keep going. Oh, we're going to have to do a part 2, Brandon. One story to close it off. I was listening to John Maxwell Sunday, and he was on this podcast with Ed Milet. You know who that is? Ed Milet. Okay.
Nope.
No. Well, so anyways, John was telling this story, and he was like, yeah, John's 76. And he was like, yeah, I was talking to this 96-year-old, and I asked him the question. I was like, what was it? What gets you going, or something, something like that. One of those generic questions. And the 96-year-old's answer, his answer was, the best is yet to come. And he's 96, but it's just such a testament to our stories, no matter where you're at, which is the best is yet to come. And let me tell you something. It is not what you do that, and we've talked about this in previous episodes too, which is why I'm really loving this conversation, but it's not what you do that determines your identity. It's is this me? Is this me right now? Man, Brandon, thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah, what a pleasure.
We're gonna do a part 2.
Part 2.
That's for sure. Thanks for joining us. Really looking forward to the next one. And obviously, just like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Hit that notification bell, and we'll talk soon.